Hello and welcome to Who's the Bossk? It's a Star Wars podcast from laughingplace.com. My name is Mike Celestino. I am your host. I am the lead Southern California reporter and editorial director for Star Wars content at Laughing Place. This is episode number 185 of Who's the Bossk, and we will be discussing the latest two episodes. There was a doubleheader, 2 episodes of Star Wars, The Bad Batch, the animated series on Disney Plus. That'll be coming up later in the episode. And for that discussion, I have invited back on the show my friend and fellow enthusiastic Star Wars podcaster, Richard Woloski. Richard, how are you? Thank you so much for coming back on Who's the Bossk to talk more Star Wars with me.
Hold on, I've got to do my dramatic turn.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me on once again. My favorite podcast to appear on.
Oh, really? Wow, thank you. That's a huge honor coming from you. Definitely appreciate that. We are recording live on the Laughing Place YouTube channel, by the way. If anyone has any questions or comments, we'll be happy to address them. We did have some breaking news this morning that we're going to be talking about in a little bit as well. So it's been exciting getting ready for this episode. But before we get into any of that, I want to ask you, Richard, you are the co-host of a podcast called Skywalking Through Neverland that I know a lot of people love. What's been going on over there lately? What's the news in Skywalking land?
Well, how much time do you got? We got about this much going on over here at the Skywalking Network. First of all, we're very excited about this week's episode in preparation for Season of the Force coming to Disneyland tomorrow.
Yes.
We went through the history of the Star Wars and Disney park crossovers, which includes Star Tours, Star Wars Weekends, Galactic Nights, Galaxy's Edge, of course, Galactic Star Cruiser, and so much more. The first Season of the Force Season 1.5. That'll be coming up on Season of the Force 2.5. And, of course, we got to give a special nod to a special captain named EO, who started this whole thing off. And next week, we'll continue our breakdown with our review and breakdown of Season of the Force coming to Disneyland tomorrow, April the 5th.
So both of these episodes sound like they're must listens before you go and check out Season of the Force, which is also going to be a topic in our Star Wars headlines coming up. So, Richard, you and I are both going to be getting up bright and early tomorrow morning to head down to Disneyland Resort. You have a little shorter drive than I do, but what are you excited for? What are you anticipating from this media event tomorrow?
I am really excited about going on Star Tours and seeing all the new locations and characters. Yeah. I'm looking forward to Ahsoka coming on the transmission and saying, we're going to pick a rebel spy. Richard, it's not going to be you. Just know this straight off the bat. And Grogu's like, yeah, Rich, you'll never be the rebel spy, so just get used to it. So I'm really eager to see the new additions to Star Tours and Hyperspace Mountain. I can't wait to go on that again. It's always been a favorite overlay, and just talking to the Imagineers and seeing what went into bringing Season of the Force back and why it took 8 years. Last time they did this was for Rogue One. And that was rolled into the beginning of 2017. So what, seven years?
Very excited myself. So stay tuned for lots of coverage from that media event, both at laughingplace.com and over at Skywalking Through Neverland. I'm sure we'll be thoroughly discussing everything going on over there at Season of the Force at Disneyland Resort. Let's get into the 5 Star Wars questions. Richard, you have been kind enough to appear on every season of Who's the Bossk, so that means you're up to the 5th and final level of the 5 Star Wars questions. Are you ready for these?
I did not get a wink of sleep last night in preparation for these questions. I re-examined and examined and re-examined once again to make sure I got everything right. So if I get something wrong, I apologize. I'm doing my best.
Okay. No right or wrong answers here. These are opinions.
Oh,
so
tell me this now? Oh, I could have slept last night.
You have to sleep. We have a very early morning tomorrow. You need some sleep. Number 1 of the 5 Star Wars questions, level 5. What is your favorite Star Wars movie poster?
Well, how many choices do I get? 10?
One, just one.
15? Okay, good. I would say the number one would have to be the teaser poster for The Empire Strikes Back, the one with the big Vader helmet, because
Okay.
it was the calling of the next Star Wars film. So just seeing this poster means this movie is coming to a galaxy near you. And as a 10-year-old at the time,
Yeah.
I was going ballistic. Vader was my favorite character. And I remember going to a science fiction convention, and one dealer had this poster, and it was going for the King's ransom of $15. $15, which at 10 years old was the King's ransom. And next to it was a Star Trek the Motion Picture poster for $9. And I begged my father, begged and pleaded, can I please get this poster, please? And he said, well, there's a Star Trek one for $9. Like, oh, no, you didn't just say that. Look at Vader's helmet right there. So after hours of begging and pleading, and when you go to a department store and you see a little kid on the ground and he's just flailing around when he's like 2 or 3 years old, that was me at 10 years old. And finally he did get it for me, and I hung it up in my hallway, and I would just get a chair and sit down and look at this poster like I was watching a movie. It just encapsulated so much in that poster that I would just stare at it for so long. And then later on, finding out that Vader helmet is the one that Bryce Eller used for his Darth Vader promotions back in the late 70s, early 80s.
And if I'm not mistaken, have you had him on the show? Has he been on the show?
Many, a couple of times, talking about all his live Darth Vader appearances. For those who don't know, Bryce Eller was the gentleman who was in the Vader costume during all the official licensed Darth Vader visits to department stores, live appearances, and he was the man inside the costume during the making of the Star Wars TV show when they had Vader putting his footprints in the cement at Grauman's Chinese Theater. He was on Donnie and Marie. He was on the Oscars. Whenever we saw Darth Vader on TV, that was Bryce Eller in the costume. And then knowing that helmet is the one he wore for those live appearances just adds another level of excitement.
I have a follow-up question to this. So, as an OG era Star Wars fan, was there ever any question coming out of the first movie that Darth Vader would be returning for the sequel? Because, he gets shot out of the sky by the Millennium Falcon. He goes spinning off into space. And that's kind of last we see him at the end of that original film. We didn't know how important that character would be at that point. As a fan coming out of the theater, did you ever think, is there a chance we might not see Darth Vader again?
No, because at that time, villains would always die at the end of a movie. You always knew that was coming. And it was very predictable. But now the villain lives. He goes hurling off. He didn't explode. He didn't blow up. He didn't perish. But he went spinning off into space, which meant we were going to see him again. And that was another level of excitement for Star Wars. It didn't follow the norms that most films did at the time. So the villain lived.
Awesome. So,
And as a side note, if you go to our episode with Paul Hirsch, he tells about the making, how that scene came about, because that wasn't supposed to happen at the end of Star Wars. But then he came up with an idea of, wait a minute, we need to have Vader live. So let's take some outtakes of Darth Vader. We have the ship model, and we'll spin the film to make it look like he's hurling through space.
Oh, okay.
And that's how that scene came about. So they wrote that in the editing room. Listen to our Paul Hirsch episode. Fantastic nugget of Star Wars knowledge.
Great. Yeah. So it must have been super exciting to get that, confirmed when you see that poster. Obviously, he had, showed up in the comics after that and stuff, and expanded universe novels like the Splinter of the Mind's Eye, right? So you kind of had a feeling, this Darth Vader guy is going to be pretty important. And then he's the central figure in that teaser poster. All right, let's get to number 2.
Wait a minute, hold on. I've got 14 more posters to go through. You know what? I'll email you.
There's only so much time. Richard, what is your favorite Star Wars fight scene or action sequence?
And how many do I get? 32? 32 choices?
Just one choice for each question.
Oh, you're killing me, Mike. You're killing me. I would say the Clone War from Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
Especially the sequence where you just see the silhouettes of the clone troopers and the battle droids, and you see all the bright and blue laser bolts coming from each side. I love that sequence. And when I finally got Attack of the Clones on DVD, I would just watch that part again and again and again.
I have another follow-up question for you then. As an OG Star Wars fan, you first heard the phrase Clone Wars in the original Star Wars film. How close was the actual clone depiction of the Clone Wars to what you had envisioned when you first heard that phrase?
We first heard the words Clone Wars coming from Ben Kenobi. Then we see the Clone Wars and Attack of the Clones, and the only connection is the word clones. Other than that, you would never see what was coming from the Clone Wars. And they mentioned it in the Star Wars comic book series. They would mention the General Kenobi. They would have an issue, Silent Drifting, where you would see the young General Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Clone Wars, and they would throw in Clone Wars little anecdotes or references, but nothing to ever visualize anything. So when we finally got it, it was all brand new.
Definitely.
And you didn't come in going, wait a minute, this doesn't match what I had in my head at 9 years old. I'm out. I'm gone. See you later.
Speak for yourself. Let's say hi to some people in the comments real quick. So Krishna said hi in the comics. Hello, Krishna. And then someone from Skywalking Through Neverland said, hey, nice shirt. I don't know if she's referring to me. I'm wearing a Legion shirt.
No, she's referring to me and my new Galactic Star Cruiser shirt.
Oh, yeah. I just... So where did you pick that up, Richard?
The Disney store, Disney.com, is having a big blowout sales on all their Galactic Star Cruiser merchandise. And when I went on this Galactic Star Cruiser in 2022, I saw this shirt, I saw that long green jacket, and I really wanted them, but they were very expensive. Well, on the DisneyStore.com, they're having major sales, and I got this for a very good price.
I may have also picked up one of those items when I was down at Walt Disney World in January at a good price, and I'm saving it for a special occasion coming up. So
you're right now being very cold in Los Angeles today.
Right.
Very, very cold. Tomorrow it's going to be cold and rainy. You can wear this, but if the temperature goes above 71 degrees, you can't wear this. It's very heavy, and there's a silk lining underneath, so it will get very, very toasty.
Sarah wants to know what I bought, and it will make its debut later this year, not tomorrow at Season of the Force.
What are you holding out for?
There's a big special event regarding Galactic Star Cruiser. If you know about that segment of the Star Wars fandom, you may be able to put that together. You may have heard of a little event, fan-run event coming up later this year about the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. You may be aware of that. Anyway, speaking of costumes, this is a great segue to your opinion. What is the coolest on-screen Star Wars costume? And I'm asking you to be specific, please. So don't just say, oh, Han Solo. I want you to say Han Solo right after he got unfrozen from the carbonite. You know what I'm talking about, but you probably have a different choice.
I'm way ahead of you. I'm way ahead of you there, Mike. So I'm gonna go with Bespin Luke.
Nice.
This is my favorite costume of all of the Star Wars films. And I remember, because a lot of these favorites have got a connection to my childhood. And that's what I really cherish and value, those first time seeing things, or how I experienced something, or how I felt. And I remember seeing that Luke Skywalker Bespin outfit in publicity stills for The Empire Strikes Back, and just loving it. My Bespin Luke figure, there we go. This is not my original one. The original 3 3/4 quarter inch was always a favorite of mine. And in 1981, the Star Wars Fan Club offered the Bespin Luke jacket.
Wow.
And I just snatched this up as soon as I could. And during my early years, when I was taking headshots to be one of those actor people, every headshot had me wearing this Bespin Luke Skywalker jacket. Because at that point, in the early 90s, Star Wars was still in slumber years.
Yeah.
It was starting to wake up with Heir to the Empire. but no one could look at that jacket and go, "Hey, that's Luke's Bespin jacket." And right now, it's just Star Wars, just so everywhere people would recognize that. But every once in a while, Sarah and I would go out, and I would wear that jacket, and people would say, "Is that a Star Wars jacket?" And I would say, "Yes, it is." And thank you for acknowledging. And I love it because it doesn't have like a big rebel symbol or anything that says this is a Star Wars
Yeah.
jacket, except for that tag on the inside.
Right.
It's very, very subtle.
So
Like
is that the one that you got back then? That's the
yes,
vintage
this
one?
is the 1981 Luke Skywalker
Wow.
Bespin jacket.
That's great. So
And
you mentioned that you saw it first in publicity stills and stuff, but now again, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Mark Hamill wear the same outfit on the Muppet Show?
yes, he did.
And
Yeah,
that was before Empire came out, right?
that was February of 1980. Do you know how I know that?
Today in Star
Today in
Wars
Star
history.
Wars history.
Okay.
That's how I know that. But a little before that, there was a store in my hometown called Caroline's Sweet Shop. And by accident, they put out their Empire Strikes Back Topps trading cards before they were supposed to. And I remember it was January, 'cause my birthday's in January. And I
Yeah.
remember getting these cards on my birthday, which preceded the Muppet Show where Mark Hamill wore that outfit. And I remember seeing that card of Luke Skywalker in that famous pose in Cloud City. And I saw that jacket and it's like, oh, I love that jacket, because before that, we just saw Luke in his Tatooine farm boy outfit. But
Right.
now we're seeing him in a new outfit, a new costume. And this looks so militaristic. So there was history behind that costume and the character. So much came out of just seeing those stills. And then seeing him on the Muppet Show, it's like, oh, I've got to have this jacket. I've got to have this jacket. And then every once in a while, one of the characters would say, "Who's your tailor? I love that outfit." It's like, yes, me too, me too.
Yeah, that's a running gag in that Muppet episode. Number 4. Oh, this is the only. So most of these, like you guys, I try to be positive. Most of these Star Wars questions have been positive. This is the one negative one. I'm very curious what your answer is going to be to this. So if you could theoretically erase one piece of Star Wars media or one element of the entire Star Wars franchise from existence entirely, what would you choose and why?
Can I rephrase the question? What is my least favorite
Sure.
moment in Star Wars history?
Yes.
The one thing I would put down the bottom of my list, and we cover this on this week's Skywalking Through Neverland episode 457. When Star Tours was opening in January of 1987, they had a big opening ceremony.
Okay.
And part of this opening ceremony was something that fans have dubbed the Darth Vader Ballet, where you would have a ballet routine with Luke and Han and Leia doing all these big flips and spins. If you watch Dancing with the Stars, you'll know what I'm talking about by these big dance numbers. And you're watching this going, who are you appealing to? Who do you not know the Star Wars audience? Why would you have a ballet routine in the middle of your Star Tours grand opening ceremony? Who did not look at the rundown and go, wait a minute, let's just skip this altogether because this is embarrassing. So if you watch our episode, we play some clips from that, and you watch and go, wow. If anyone ever disses on the Star Wars Holiday Special, they've got to watch this. Now they're going to love the Holiday Special.
Isn't it exciting that you and I are going to be at the park again tomorrow for another kind of piece of Star Tours history, because it's getting all these updates? Yeah, pretty fun.
Yeah, if they have this Darth Vader ballet, I will laugh my butt off. I will laugh so hard, and I'll appreciate it more. And then go, hey, maybe that's something we should do in private. But now let me ask you.
Yes,
Mike, what would you erase or put on the bottom of your list?
Well, I'm not going to tell you now, sadly, but if you listen to episode 190 coming up.
Okay, hold on.
I am a mere 5 weeks from now, I am going to be answering all 5 of these Star Wars questions. So check that out.
Give us a hint. Give us a little tease.
I haven't thought about it yet. This is something where I like you. I need to. No, we gotta move on, Richard. But yeah, episodes from now, 190, you can find out what my answers to these questions will be. Number 5, the fifth and final of all Star Wars questions on this show. And this is an optimistic one, looking forward to the future of the franchise. What do you personally want to see happen with Star Wars coming down the line?
Well, I love world building, so I want to see all future Star Wars content on the small screen.
Okay.
Because then you can really delve into these characters and get more than you could in a 2.5 hour film. The way films are going now, it'd be like 3.5, 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I really want to see Star Wars on the small screen. And maybe that's because I'm biased. I hate going to the movies these days because the general public doesn't know how to act in movie theaters anymore.
You and me both.
I think the only movie I'd seen the last 4 or 5 years outside of a media screening is Barbie.
Right.
Other than that, nope. So that's why
we're kind of spoiled with those media screenings because they're very strict about the rules there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what I want to see for future Star Wars. Let's go to Disney Plus. I'm happy with that.
Great. So, I mean, you've been getting your wish these past few years. Will that continue? I guess is kind of the question, because they are kind of pivoting, or it seems like they're going to be pivoting back to.
Oh, you believe that, don't you? Yeah.
But that is a great segue, Richard, again, into our next topic of conversation, going into Star Wars headlines for the week. Just a mere hour before we started recording this episode, we got some big news coming out of Lucasfilm about the next animated installment of the Star Wars franchise coming to Disney Plus on May the 4th. It is a follow-up to Tales of the Jedi, which came out how long ago now, Richard? Do you recall? Was that a day in Star Wars history?
Yeah, it's in 2022.
Okay, so it's been a couple years.
I want to say it was May the 4th, but I got my copy of Today in Star Wars history right over there.
We can check later. But Tales of the Empire, 6 shorts, 6 new animated shorts called Tales of the Empire, coming May the 4th. There are 2 characters this time. So the Tales of the Jedi were about Ahsoka Tano and Count Dooku, divided in half, 3 and 3. Now we've got Morgan Elsbeth. This is a character that was introduced in The Mandalorian, and she had a lot of screen time in Ahsoka as well, played by Diana Lee Inosanto. And then Barriss Offee, who is a character from the Clone Wars animated series, voiced by Meredith Salinger. That's going to be the 2 characters that these 6 shorts are focused on. Again, probably divided in half. We'll also get appearances by the 4th sister, the Inquisitor character, Wing, which is a character from The Mandalorian, played by Disney legend Wing Ti Chow. Very excited to see him back. We'll get Grand Admiral Thrawn. We'll have the Grand Inquisitor. We'll have General Grievous, and Darth Vader himself will be making an appearance as well. What were your thoughts when you first saw this news, Richard? How excited are you for this?
Oh, I'm very excited. I love Tales of the Jedi. I was very excited when they announced Tales of the Jedi, the 2nd season. Now to have this come in, I love what they do with these little shorts. You get so much storytelling in these little couple of minutes, maybe 10 minutes per short, but they just delve into the characters that we didn't have a whole lot of backstory on. Like Morgan Elsbeth, wasn't too crazy about her in Mandalorian, because who is this character all of a sudden? We saw that she was a witch and Ahsoka. It's like, okay, but where did she come from? How did she get to this position? And now we'll get a chance to see this. And that's what really excited me. When you can build on characters that you didn't have a whole lot of knowledge on, but then they give you this backstory that, oh, I didn't see this coming with this character. So I'm very excited about that. Any kind of prequel tie-ins, I get very excited about. Count Dooku and General Grievous. Oh my goodness. And we see, I don't know if it's an alternate point of view of General Grievous and the Separatist army coming in to destroy Talzin's camp, because we do see Grievous battling Morgan Elsbeth. So is this like a whole different point of view from what we saw in that Clone Wars episode when all the Night Sisters were wiped out?
Right.
So I'm very, very eager to see how that plays out.
Me too. I'm super excited for this for the same reasons. I love, like you mentioned earlier, the world building of Star Wars. And this seems like it's going and filling in the gaps of these characters' stories, which I love to see as well. It reminds me of the books that were coming out in the 90s that I absolutely adored, which were Tales of Blank. You had Tales, I think there was
Mos
one
Eisley
Tales of,
Cantina,
yeah, there's
Tales,
Tales of the
Bounty
Empire,
Hunters.
which is the title of this show, Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina, Tales from Jabba's Palace, Tales of the Bounty Hunters, all short stories about the individual characters from those locations and parts of the galaxy. And this seems like it's following up on that. I hope we get more. I hope they follow through.
I think we will. I think
Yeah,
we
that
will.
would be amazing with, with Dave Filoni now overseeing the creative side of Star Wars entirely. So it seems likely that animation might be as regular a release as live action, which is always welcome from me.
Now, there was that one clip of Barriss Offee.
Yeah.
It was a very dark, shadowy scene, but it looked like she had a spinning lightsaber. So are they going to make her an Inquisitor?
Yeah, it seems like she is being at least considered to be part of the Inquisitorius. So
yeah, looks like she's well on her way. If they give her a spinning helicopter lightsaber, I think that's pretty much a clear sign that she's an Inquisitor. And then seeing Darth Vader, oh, come on. Come on. Now that they have James Earl Jones's voice that they can replicate and use whenever they want. So excited about this.
Yeah, very exciting. Sarah wanted to clarify, I think, in the comments here, we did get Tales of the Jedi after Star Wars Celebration 2022. So a little less than 2 years ago would have been the release of that. Let's get into some more headlines here. Going back to the parks, Disney parks and Disneyland, where we're going to be tomorrow, Richard, they're going to have these BDX droids. Now, these made their debut some time ago. Again, Sarah's going to have to look up the exact date. Like 6 months ago, I want to say, or more. These BDX droids were spotted for one day, and I wasn't there. We didn't get a heads up. They were wandering around Galaxy's Edge, and people got video, and then Disney released their own official video of the development of the droids from Imagineering. And now finally we see where they're going to end up in Galaxy's Edge, making daily appearances throughout Season of the Force, which does start tomorrow. Richard, you didn't get to see these in person, I don't believe. So what were your thoughts when you first saw them, and are you excited to see them in person?
I love me a cute droid, whether it's R2-D2 or BB-8 or B from Andor. And now this follows in that same tradition. To see these little duck droids walking around is going to be just amazing. I'm wondering what they're going to do about the crowds, because you see any character at Galaxy's Edge or anywhere else always generates a big crowd around them. These being so small, how are they going to keep people back from stepping on them by accident? Hope by accident. So I'm eager to see how they're going to handle that. But just seeing these new puppeteered droid, I don't know if they must be puppeteered in some way, because I know they're automatons, so they can go by themselves, but you're gonna need some kind of a puppeteer to choose a direction or just react with different people. So yeah, I'm very excited to see. I love puppeteering when it comes to the meet and greet characters, whether it's Grogu or Chopper or any of the droids. I love how they interact, and I want to see how they're going to interact with the crowds here. So yeah, I'm on board with this. I'm so excited. How about you?
Me too. Yeah, I'm super psyched as well. After all this buildup, finally getting to see them in person will be very cool. Sarah says they are engineered to stay upright no matter what. I think we're going to be testing that. We're going to be kicking them. And
no. Delete.
Don't disinvite us from this event.
Hold on. We will not, Disney, I was never here. I don't know Mike Celestino. How do I minimize this window?
And yeah, let's make sure to ask the Imagineers tomorrow about the puppeteer droids. I'm sure they're, like you mentioned, Richard, I'm sure there's some kind of override switch in case they go in the wrong direction or somewhere
or
they don't
they just turn Skynet.
Yeah.
and turn against the guests.
By the end of tomorrow, we'll be tied up in ropes as the droids take over the park. Okay.
Now, I want to see these droids or any other new droids who come up to people who are texting in the middle of a busy walkway and tell them to move along. Oh, bring the stormtroopers back to do that.
Right.
I would love to have these any kind of characters to tell people who are standing in the middle of a busy walkway texting to move along. We need a move along droid. Disney, are you listening?
Move along droid, please. Disney, give us one. Also at Disneyland, but not in Galaxy's Edge. I believe this is only in Tomorrowland at Disneyland, there's a new seek and find scavenger hunt type game for Season of the Force. I saw my friend Nick Tierce tweeted today signage for this activity in Tomorrowland at Disneyland. They put them up today. You can only buy the map starting tomorrow. And it's kind of like the Easter egg hunt that they do at Disneyland every year. You get a little map, you find all the locations of these little canisters instead of the eggs, and then you go back and you trade in, or you get a stamp on your map and they'll give you a prize for having completed the hunt, although you don't actually need to complete it, as we know from the Easter egg hunt. Richard, are you excited to check this out as well?
Oh yeah, I love that Easter egg hunt. Sarah and I do it every year.
Yeah,
Even though we know where all the eggs are. It's just fun to do.
right.
Anything that really enhances or make the experience that much more immersive, we just love to do.
And I saw some fans had noted that the design of the canister came from this lamp. It's a kind of a futuristic looking lamp that you can buy at Target or you could buy it on Amazon. And it has been like, I guess you would call the term as kit bashed from Star Wars, where you get like an everyday object and you paint it to look like Star Wars. So I think it would be cool you can make your own kind of little canister from Season of the Force if you want to do your own little crafting project. I know that lamp has also shown up in Andor. Looks like maybe
is it a lamp like this?
No, it looks like a cylinder and the top light comes up.
I know what you're talking about.
It looks very Star Wars without actually being Star Wars. So I guess that's why they're using it for stuff like that. But yeah, we'll have more coverage on that both at Skywalking Through Neverland and laughingplace.com. So check that out. Let's see. Leaving the parks for a bit, we're going to talk about The Acolyte. This is another live action series coming to Disney Plus, and we got a first look image of this character Padawan Jeki Lon. Now, we saw her in the trailer as well, so it's not really a first look, but there is a new image of her available. Richard, what are your thoughts on The Acolyte? This is coming up in like a month and a half, this new live action series. Are you looking forward to this one?
Oh, I'm loving this series. Even though I haven't seen it, I'm very excited. Now, who is I'm looking up this character. What's the character's name?
Jeki Lon, Jecki, and the last name is Lon.
Lon.
But yeah, you can find that image.
Oh, yeah. This character stood out to me during the Acolyte trailer because she is played by an actress whose name I'm blanking out on, who was in Logan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and when I saw Logan, it's like, who is this actress? She is so good at such a young age.
Yeah.
And now that they're highlighting her, it gets me really excited because I think she's great. I think she's gonna bring so much to the Acolyte. I'm trying to find her.
Her name is Daphne Keene. I just looked it up.
Okay.
Dafneke.
Yeah. Even the small screen time she got in that Acolyte trailer, she just commanded your attention. Yeah. And I'm most excited about her character, I gotta say.
Okay.
Just
cool.
Just in that little bit we saw in the Acolyte trailer,
yeah,
and the performance she gave in those little beats, it's like, oh, she's in it. She is in this. Because most Jedis are very stoic, and that's the way they should be. But she had so much emotion in her voice. So yeah,
Agreed.
I'm very excited about this. I'm very excited about the Acolyte and seeing where they're going to take a show that's taking the point of view from the dark side.
Right. Yeah. We'll see more about that at the end of May. I think it's May 20th.
June 4th.
June 4th. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
And
so 2 months. 2 months from today.
That's true. I'm very excited about this because after seeing the actors at Star Wars Celebration, they are so pumped. These actors are so excited to be in Star Wars. The main actress, Amandla
Stenberg.
That's the one. She came out and dressed as Padme Amidala.
Right.
So they are such fans. And I love to see these new Star Wars actors and crew being great, positive ambassadors for Star Wars fandom.
Yeah.
Because we lost a lot of that during the original trilogy era. But then came the Clone Wars. He had Ashley Eckstein on the Mount Rushmore of Star Wars positive fandom. And from there on, everyone just knew about the fandom, knew how important the fans were, and didn't just give an answer like, I don't know, I don't remember. But they appreciate the fans, and this show here is no exception.
Not like Billy D. Williams asking why people are so obsessed with Star Wars, or I don't know.
Yeah, don't even ask Harrison Ford. If you ever meet Harrison Ford, don't ask him any Star Wars questions, and you might have a conversation with him.
Okay.
Ask him about helicopters.
Yeah, or having a ranch out in Wyoming or wherever it is. But
or talking about the second season of Ally McBeal.
There you go. In book news, now you told me to avoid book news, I think, when you agreed to be on this show. So let's just go through this really quickly. There's a novel coming out called Star Wars Mace Windu, The Glass Abyss, written by Stephen Barnes. This novel was due to come out in August. Now it's been delayed to October 15th. That's all. That's the whole news item on that one. Just delayed by a couple months, so no big deal. Looking forward to that. Star Wars Dad Jokes is a new book, and Richard has it.
Oh, what? I was reading my Star Wars Dad Joke book. I mean, you were saying there? I didn't hear you.
By Kelly Knox, who is a contributor to StarWars.com, and she's been on this very podcast. Have you guys ever had her on the Skywalking Through Neverland?
No, we haven't.
Very kind of her to come on, who's the Bossk back in the first season. You can go and listen to that episode. And now she's got a few books under her belt. She's written a few Star Wars books, and this is her newest one, Star Wars Dad Jokes. Kelly Knox has become famous within the Star Wars fandom from making these jokes on social media, and they're kind of like very pun heavy jokes that I was debating whether or not to call this a kid's book, but it's for everybody, I think. What do you think?
Want some examples?
Yes.
How does the Mandalorian's friend Quill say good morning?
This I have spoken. No, wait.
You're almost there. You're almost there. You got it, Mike. Don't let me down.
I can't get there.
I have woken.
I have woken. That's so good. That's so good. It's bad, or bad. It's
How
good.
does Wicket get back to his village? Ewoks.
I got that.
What do you call an Ewok sneak attack? An Endor round.
Endor. I don't get that one.
Endor round.
Endor round. Okay. It's a thinker. You got to come back to it and think about why that word works. Either way, Star Wars Dad Jokes is available now. You can find that. It's like $15. It's a great gift, I'm sure, to anyone who likes humor and Star Wars, from Kelly Knox and
$14.95. This could be yours.
There you go. Let's get into a quick news item from here's comics. This week's comic book was Star Wars number 45. Great issue continuing the trial of Lando Calrissian, written by Charles Soule, highly recommended. And then Bad Batch, which we're going to be talking about in just a minute, the final season volume 1 soundtrack. Now this is going to be more up your wife Sarah Woloski's alley. She's probably streaming that as we speak. Written by Kevin Kiner, who's been on the show as well. Great music from Bad Batch as well. He's done the Clone Wars, he's done Rebels, he's done Ahsoka. He wrote the music for that, and now he's got Bad Batch final season volume 1 soundtrack is available to stream wherever you stream your music. Have you listened to any of this, Richard?
I have not.
Okay.
I love listening to the music, and I love it when Sarah breaks down the soundtrack on our episodes.
Yeah, so you can do that now. I'm sure you've enjoyed it on the episodes themselves as you hear the score, but you can listen to it independent of the show wherever you stream your music. Lastly, in Star Wars headlines for this week, I just want to mention I did go to WonderCon 2024 over this past weekend. You had briefly mentioned Ashley Eckstein earlier in the show. She was a presence at this convention. I saw the panel devoted to her. It was Spotlight on Ashley Eckstein. Her husband, David Eckstein, was the moderator, and they talked about her whole career and did some inspirational stuff for the audience as well, which was very appreciated, I think. And then she also moderated the Masquerade, which is the Saturday evening costume contest at WonderCon. That was a lot of fun. I also got to see the Hasbro panel where they made some Star Wars announcements. Ezra Bridger, Kanan Jarrus, and Zeb Orrelios are all coming to the vintage collection on individual cards. These are representations of them as they looked at the beginning of the show, as opposed to the ones that are coming with the Ghost ship, the HasLab Ghost, which look like how they look near the end of the series. We're also getting the character Moma Nadin, who Richard would have known as Hammerhead back in the old days of Star Wars action figures. He's coming to the 6-inch scale Black Series action figures. Very excited about that. And then I got to interview the Star Wars associate brand manager at Hasbro. Her name is Priya Muthu, and I talked to her for just about 5 minutes about all the announcements that came out of the Hasbro panel, which covered Star Wars and other franchises, but we focused on Star Wars in this interview. I'm going to play it now. You're not going to hear it if you're watching it live, but you will hear it when you listen to this episode later on. This is my interview with Priya Muthu from Hasbro Star Wars team at WonderCon 2024. And that was me chatting with Hasbro's Star Wars associate brand manager, Priya Muthu. And you can go find out more about those Hasbro Star Wars figures at hasbropulse.com.
Good job on the interview.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
A lot of fun nuggets of information. Thanks for bringing that to us.
Did you happen to see these announcements coming out of WonderCon for the Star Wars figures?
No, I'm not a big collector anymore. Okay. So I if they came through my feed, I probably just glanced at it.
Okay.
Had I seen Mama Nodan, then I would have said, "Hey, let's slow down here."
Yeah, that's an exciting one for me. I've been wishing for more like background characters and supporting characters in the Black Series, so that kind of got my wish on that one. Let's get into our main topic for this episode, which is the Bad Batch Season 3, the final season, episodes 10 and 11. The titles are Identity Crisis and Point of No Return. Richard, the last time you were on Who's the Bossk, we also talked about the Bad Batch in season 2 of the show. How has your relationship with the Bad Batch evolved? Is it the same as it was back then? Do you love the show more? Do you like it less since last year around this time?
Oh, I'm loving it even more. Just the background they're giving to these clone characters is fantastic. And this is doing to Rise of Skywalker what the Clone Wars did for Attack of the Clones. It answers so many questions as to how Palpatine returned. So whenever you hear or see those stupid memes, somehow Palpatine returned, well, now you know how Palpatine returned.
Watch the Bad Batch.
Yeah, exactly. So stop saying that. Project Necromancer, this is a very exciting subplot. It answers the questions about bringing back the dead and how Palpatine has got this long game. He knows right now, he knows even before this, at some point my life is going to end. So I've got to figure out a way to clone my body, and how can a cloned body sustain midi-chlorians? That is mind-blowing, because you're thinking, wait a minute, did Omega have a part in Palpatine's return? Doesn't that blow your mind?
Yeah.
So now when you watch Rise of Skywalker, you'll know how Palpatine returned, and don't go blaming Omega for this. She unknowingly participated in this experiment. So yeah, I am loving that subplot. I just wished it was more of a plot than a subplot.
Yeah.
And I know it's the Bad Batch. We got to focus on them, but I think this is too big of a plot to leave behind.
Okay. Well, before we get into this week's episodes, I want to ask you if there's anything else that stuck out to you about the first 9 episodes of this season, not including this week's episodes.
I've got a blast watching all new Star Wars content.
Yeah.
And as fun as the Fennec and the Bayou episode was, I feel like we didn't really need that little side mission at this point in the series. There's so much storytelling to tell in 15 episodes. We don't have time to waste a moment or even an episode. As fun as the episode was, we did our roundtable discussions on Skywalking Through Neverland. We did our live streams, and everyone loves this episode. It's a great episode. but did we need a side mission at this point?
I do think if I have one complaint about the Bad Batch overall as a series, and I always hesitate to use the word filler because it gets thrown around way too much, but I do think that each season has had too many episodes, and they have had to come up with stuff to kind of fill in the gaps.
I don't agree with that at all.
Okay, as he nods very vigorously. Let's say hi to Sonia real quick in the comments here. Hello, Sonia. Good to see you. Very excited for May the 4th. Yeah. Oh boy, so much happening. I forgot to mention earlier we were talking about Tales of the Empire. That is coming out on May the 4th, which is already going to be a very crowded day, I'm sure, for both you and I, Richard. So
yeah, anyone in the Los Angeles area, I'm going to be hosting Star Wars trivia at the Venice Public Library.
There you go.
At 11 a.m. So go to our Skywalking Through Neverland Facebook group, and there's an event tab. You'll get all the information right there. Venice Public Library at 11 a.m. Star Wars Trivia Challenge strikes back.
Are these questions that you've come up with yourself, or
yes? Oh yeah, these are all questions, and they're fun, spirited questions. So I'm not going to be asking you on page 15 of Last Command, what did Luke Skywalker say to Mara Jade? Nothing like that. These are very, very fun questions.
Okay, cool. Check that out.
And appropriate for the families too, not just for the adults,
family
but
friendly.
For family, yes.
I saw your take on this Star Wars trivia at San Diego Comic-Con. Everybody had a blast. It wasn't chaotic at all.
Really, because past comments suggest otherwise.
Let's get back to the Bad Batch here. These two episodes, Identity Crisis was directed by Saul Ruiz, written by Amanda Rose Munoz. Point of No Return was directed by Nate Villanueva and written as well by Amanda Rose Munoz. Matt Michnovitz, like he does for every episode this season, served as the story editor for both of these episodes. What were your general thoughts coming out of these two episodes, this week's two episodes of The Bad Batch, Richard?
I'm still not sure why they paired up these two episodes, since you didn't really need one right after the other. If Omega had been caught in Identity Crisis, I would see this being a double feature.
Right.
Because you would like, oh, what's going to happen to Omega? We need the next episode right now. So I think it was more of a scheduling thing. Like, hey, we got to get this done by May the 4th. So let's just double things up where we could. I love hating Dr. Hemlock for what he's done to these kids and just treating them as specimens. I love to hate this guy, and I just want to punch him in the throat.
Are you familiar with, so this voice actor, Jimmy Simpson, who plays Dr. Hemlock, had a recurring role on Late Show with David Letterman, where he was Lyle the intern. Are you familiar with this?
Is that him?
Richard just gasped inaudibly. Yes, that's him. He was kind of the villain of the David Letterman CBS era. And
oh my goodness,
he's the villain of the Bad Batch. But I just think it's wonderful casting because I loved that character on Letterman.
Yeah. See, this is why I listen to your show. I learn something new about Star Wars every time.
Hey, look at that. Yeah, go to YouTube and type in Lyle the intern and watch all the clips, because he's so hilarious as that character. And now he is so villainous on the Bad Batch. So great casting there. You also know Jimmy Simpson from Westworld. He was the young version of Ed Harris's character on that show. Yeah, my thought of why they paired these two episodes up together is like the first one, which is called Identity Crisis, focuses on this character of Dr. Emery Carr. We're at Mount Tantus the whole episode, and we don't see the Bad Batch. So I'm thinking maybe they just, because you don't visit the Bad Batch at all in this episode, they wanted to get in that other episode where you do get to check in on what the Bad Batch is up to, just to give the fans a little bit of that. I don't know. Is that a possibility?
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, I really enjoyed these two. I actually think the first one was my favorite of the two. I don't know, which of the two did you prefer? Because I tend to like the character stuff a little bit more than the action heavy episodes, which was the later episode.
I like the way they're giving us so much attention to Emery Carr and Dr. Hemlock, because if you have a character like Hemlock that you just love to hate, you love to watch him, and you love to just growl at the screen, that's a great episode, because like you just know that there's a new very powerful Star Wars villain. In the
Yeah.
past, it's been like Darth Vader, Darth Maul, Palpatine, who just are these angry Sith lords. But now we get someone like, even like with Thrawn, someone who can take a step back and more scientific about their procedures and how they want to attack. And Thrawn was more of the, I'm going to study your art, then attack you. And Hemlock is all about the scientific ways
Yes.
to take over the galaxy. I love that new way of thinking for your Star Wars villains. So I would like this episode more, even though he's just so mean to those kids.
Speaking of the kids, again, a great segue. Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. Uh, the episode opens with almost a disturbing depiction of how they're coming by these children, how they're finding force sensitive children with high M counts around the galaxy. Basically, they're being reported to high level bounty hunters. The bounty hunters going out and capturing these children and bringing them to Mount Tantus. And the example that we see is the reappearance of Cad Bane, which is awesome. Great to see him again. Voiced again by guest star
Corey Burton.
Corey Burton. Thank you. Coming back to voice Cad Bane as he does always when he shows up. My thought, the kind of analogy or similarity that I saw was with elements from The Mandalorian, because I don't think, and again, I could be wrong about this, I don't think we've seen those kind of like floating hover prams that the baby children are in outside of The Mandalorian before. So to me, there's a deliberate line being drawn between these two series, which are both, Dave Filoni is both heavily involved with both of these shows. So we're seeing how that kind of thing, we saw Din Djarin hunting Grogu at the beginning of The Mandalorian. Now we're kind of seeing how that sort of thing happened decades earlier in the timeline with Cad Bane hunting high M count targets for the Empire. And then I also thought Dr. Carr's story paralleled what we saw with Dr. Pershing in The Mandalorian, as she's kind of got a crisis of conscience as she's working for the Empire in this cloning facility, and she's affected by the children that are under her care to kind of having a change of heart. Did you feel the same way? Did you notice any of these parallels to the
Not until now.
Okay.
But no, great parallel, great analogy. And I predict that she will be the one, the Emery Carr, to bring the Bad Batch to Mount Tantus. Because right now, at the Crosshair, you had one thing to do and you failed. We'll talk about that in the next episode. After they have no idea how to get to Mount Tantus, I think it's going to be Emery Carr that's going to put some kind of a signal out to call Clone Force 99 to them. And when Carr was told not to get too close to these kids because they're just specimens, after that little cute girl Eva tries to make a connection with her. I liked your goggles, she said to Emery Carr.
Yes.
And I was surprised that Emery said thank you. She's treating them like people, not just like specimens.
Right.
And when Hemlock said, limit all your interactions because they're just specimens, I think that was her breaking point. It's like, no, I can't do this. I can't be a part of this. And I think she's going to sacrifice herself to save these kids.
Okay. And that is kind of her change of heart is symbolized at the end of this episode with her kind of gifting that makeshift Tuca doll to the young, I think it was Eva, was the name of the little girl.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Eva. And I think that's, like you said, that's going to continue on in later episodes, and we're going to see how maybe she helps the Bad Batch get to or rescue these children, get to Mount Tantus and help out these kids who are in Imperial captivity. It's kind of a heartbreaking episode. I liked it a lot, though. A lot of good character stuff, in my opinion. Anything else you want to say about this first episode before we move on to Point of No Return?
Yes, Dr. Hemlock, if you're listening, I hate you.
All right. There we go. So we get to, in the second episode, Point of No Return. We're on Pabu. This is the island planet where the Bad Batch have made their home when they're not having these adventures or off hunting for Omega whenever she gets kidnapped.
Doesn't Disney have a resort there? on Pabu.
That's right. Yeah, you
Isn't that
stop there.
Uwani?
Right. Oh, I was thinking you stopped there on the Disney Cruise Line. It's one of the locations you have the
Oh,
excursion. um, so what did you think of Point of No Return? Let's see. This is basically the imperial occupation of Pabu. I would say that's the overall theme, the overall plot of this episode.
can we give a moment of silence to the Marauder?
Oh gosh, yeah. It's just like the Razor Crest again in the
Yeah.
Mandalorian. It got
Oh.
blowed up.
Like, well, we've been with the ship for 3 seasons, and now it's just blown up. It wasn't even targeted as, hey, there's the Marauder. We got to blow up that ship. It was just something
Yep.
in the line of fire.
Yep. So if you bought that Lego set, you have to smash it on the ground now.
Burn it.
And before the Empire shows up, actually, the Bad Batch is planning on leaving Pabu just to keep them out of danger, basically, because there's such high value targets for the Empire. And there was this moment that stuck out to me of Omega talking with her friend, and her name is Liana Hazard, and she's leaving behind items for when she eventually plans to return to Pabu. And the 2 items that she leaves behind is her actual Tuca doll, Lula, that she got from Wrecker, and the goggles, the broken goggles that once belonged to Tech. What did you think about that moment? Did you find any particular meaning in those 2 items being left behind on Pabu?
I think Omega knows what's coming, and it won't be
Yeah.
pretty, and she wants to keep her valued possessions safe.
Hmm.
So she's going to leave them with her friend, knowing that her friend is going to keep all those possessions very, very safe. And it's a reason to keep on fighting for Omega and to come back and to get those goggles once again. It's kind of like in Andor when Luthen had given Andor that Kyber
Yes.
crystal and said, "Hey, I want that back." So it's more of a, well, I gotta come back and get that crystal. I gotta come back and get those goggles in my Tuca doll. So I think it's one more way that is going to propel Omega to successfully bring down Tantus and come back again.
I gotta figure they're going to wind up on this island planet, Pabu, at the end of the show, right? It's gonna be disappointing, I think, to a lot of people if they don't wind up there, right? At the very end. You
Yeah.
think that's a possibility that we'll have a happy ending like that?
This last episode needs to be 2 hours. It needs to be a 2-hour film.
Yeah,
There's so much to tie up. Yeah,
right.
they need to come back to Pabu, because I think that's going to be a good driving force for Omega. They return to see her, get those goggles, make that connection once again.
So the Empire has tracked the Bad Batch to Pabu thanks to this character called the Clone X Trooper, who has snuck onto Fee Genoa's ship. Now that's the character played by Wanda Sykes, and they found the um, destination, the tracking. What do they call it? I'm blanking on the name. The
The homing beacon, the tracker.
yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The pinpoint. I'm blanking on what it's called, but they found the location of Pabu. Regardless, that's where the Bad Batch are hiding out. The Empire shows up there. The Clone X Trooper coordinates is the word that I was looking for. It just came to my mind. And then there's this occupation, and Hunter and Wrecker are kind of out of commission because Wrecker gets knocked unconscious when the explosion happens. The ship blows up. Hunter tries to hijack one of the Imperial ships, and he gets dumped in the ocean. So it's up to Crosshair and Omega to come up with the plan. And their plan is to track the Imperial ship. Basically, Omega's going to surrender herself to the Empire, and they're going to track the Imperial ship back to Mount Tantus and the planet Wayland that's on. Unfortunately, like you mentioned earlier in the episode, Crosshair fails in his task of shooting this
That
homing
tracker.
beacon, the tracker, onto the ship because he's kind of ambushed by stormtroopers. Boy, that was a gasp-worthy moment. I was like, what are they going to do? I think I want to say at this point, Richard, I think we should tell people that we have seen episodes beyond this. We have access to screeners. We have not seen the series finale. We have seen through episode 14. We're not going to spoil anything that comes after this, but I want to ask you, what were your thoughts when this moment happened in this episode? Before you saw anything past this, how did you think they were going to find Omega?
How did I think they were going to find Omega?
Yeah, after she gets taken again at the end of
Oh,
this episode.
it's a mystery. They've been looking for Mount Tantus this whole season.
Yeah,
They have no tracker. They have no coordinates. They got nothing. So I don't know. And that was the exciting part. It wasn't predictable. You couldn't speculate on anything because you didn't know. And I think my assumption that Emery Carr is going to lead them to Mount Tantus, I think that was the way things were going to go. There's only one way this could go at this point, and that's if someone on the inside gives them the coordinates. And who's going to do that but Emery, who's having a change of heart, and she's going to get close to Omega again, and and Omega's going to say, okay, now that you've seen what the Empire is all about, it's now or never.
So that was your prediction. Like I said, full disclosure, we have seen past this point. We're not going to say how it actually happens, or if it actually happens in these next upcoming episodes. We have not seen the finale. I personally was a little disappointed and frustrated by the end of this episode that we kind of wound up back where the season started, with one exception. So this season 3 started with Omega in captivity at Mount Tantus. The Bad Batch is looking for her and don't know how to find her. That's where we are right now. The difference is that Crosshair is now with the Bad Batch. He has also escaped Mount Tantus. So you have a little bit of an advantage on the Bad Batch side now. What do you think Crosshair brings to the team that might help them in this task?
Everything. Bringing back that family unit. I think that's got everything to do with it. And
yeah,
I think like any film, when in the second act you have a big battle, the heroes lose, they learn, they come back, and they triumph in the end. I think this parallels any kind of film structure. They had a battle, they lost, and now they've got to reconvene. How can we win this final Star War? Now that they have Crosshair, they've learned from each other. Crosshair has learned. I think they're stronger characters than where we found them in the beginning of the season. So I think they've got so much experience to finally win this final battle. And I think the circle is now complete. However, the Bad Batch is coming. They're coming stronger, and they're coming with a Batcher.
They also have the Batcher, right? I forgot. Who can forget about Batcher? Another wonderful addition to the team.
How many Omegas are you going to see at the next Star Wars celebration with a Batcher cosplayer?
Would it be like a dog dressed up or a human in a Batcher?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Okay. Richard, anything else you want to say about these 2 episodes of the Bad Batch before we move along?
I want answers. There's so many answers that need to be. So many questions that need to be answered.
Yeah.
And I know Filoni is very good at, we're going to give you a half an answer, but that half an answer is going to propel all these new questions. So I like having an answer as to what's going on, especially with Omega. I don't want anything left ambiguous to like, oh, you're going to find out the answer to this in Mandalorian season 4. I don't want any of that. I want answers, and we all know Filoni is good at giving you a little bit of a hint of an answer. At the same time, that is going to bring up more questions. I want to know all about Omega and her DNA and how that is going to sustain a midichlorians. I want to know more about Project Necromancer. So moving on, we just need answers. No more side missions, no more bayous. Just give us answers. Let's tie some things up, and I'll be very, very happy.
Well, I think that's the great thing about the title of this episode, Point of No Return, because that to me is from here on out, we're in the end game of this series. Omega has been taken again. They have to do the A mission of getting to Mount Tantus. And I think at this point, when I saw this episode, I was like, this is where the series is headed at this point. The other thing that I've been chomping at the bit to learn is what happens. What do we see when Clone X Trooper takes off his mask? Who's underneath that mask? And I made my prediction some weeks ago. And I'm not going to say in the episodes that we've seen, whether or not we learn that answer. But I am at this point in the show, I was very excited and very heavily anticipating finding out the answer to that. Anything else about the
Well,
Bad
when you were
Batch?
on
Yeah,
our episode for our
yeah.
mid-season breakdown, I predicted it's going to be Ezra Bridger.
You think Ezra's going to be under the mask? Okay.
No. I just think he's going to be Clone Commander X. No more, no less.
Okay, interesting.
I don't think
All
he
right.
needs to be anyone else.
All right.
If it's Tech, I'm out.
You're out.
Yeah, because if you keep killing off characters, beloved
Yeah.
characters, and bringing them back, a death in the future will mean nothing.
I 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I think deaths are important. I think other, creators have. I think James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy director, has said this a bunch. When he kills off a character, that character is dead because it has to mean something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the MCU is very guilty of that, killing off a
Yes.
character, going, but wait a minute, there's a multiverse. They
Yes.
come right back.
And that, to be fair, that comes right out of the Marvel comics, because the comics have done that for decades and decades. But I do prefer when deaths stick.
Yeah.
In
let's
media.
slide with Darth Maul. Well, let's slide with Echo. Okay, that's it. That is it. You've overdone it at this
What
point.
about Asajj Ventress? You okay with that one?
Well, that's a little different because she's a Night Sister witch.
Right.
You put her in that lake with all the green mist. Like, okay, I can see how you could bring her back. But okay, at this point, you're done. You're over your limit on bringing people back. But then again, we have Project Necromancer, so but that's more for Palpatine and bringing his clone body back.
Right.
So that's a little different thing. But if you keep on killing off characters, and it's not part of Project Necromancer, just leave that to the Emperor. Have him leave that just to himself. I'm gonna use this just for myself to bring myself back, and that's it. Sorry, Tech. We won't be using this on you. I apologize.
Somehow Bucky returned as the Winter Soldier. Let's wrap up this week's episode of Who's the Boss with our final segment. It's called First Steps into a Larger World. This is where we talk about the media that we've been consuming and or enjoying outside of Star Wars. My choice for this week, my pick, is a movie called The First Omen, which I got to see early and write a review for on laughingplace.com. I thought this was a really solid kind of throwback prequel horror movie. It is a prequel to the original Omen film from the 70s, which is very good. And this one was also better than I thought it was going to be. I will say it does suffer in the first half. I'm not a fan of like atmospheric, like slow burn horror. This movie has too many like fake out jump scares
I hate
in the first half. That's my big complaint.
I'm
Otherwise, you're out already.
Well, we'll give you 2 jump scares, and that's it per film. That's it.
I wish they didn't do that. I was with my buddy John when we saw this movie, and he's a horror filmmaker. I was complaining to him after we saw it about that, and he said, you just have to. You just can't get away with it anymore of not having those kind of jump scares. And I was like, why? But this is supposed to harken back to the filmmaking of the 70s. Why not make it like that? So with some minor reservations, I will recommend The First Omen. How about you, Richard? What have you been reading, watching, or playing lately? Anything from the world of pop culture?
Can I pull a Zootopia and answer your question by changing your question? You said
you always do, so why not?
So nothing outside of Star Wars. So I'm going to change your question into what have I been enjoying inside of Star Wars? And Sarah and I have been rewatching Obi-Wan Kenobi and Andor.
Oh,
this is the first time we rewatched these series. And
then did you get the 4K discs?
Oh, that's a good question. No, we didn't. We watched on Disney Plus.
Okay,
I forgot they were coming out on.
Yeah, I think it's at the end of this month. They're out on 4K.
Yeah, April 30th.
Right.
So no, we watched them on Disney Plus, and boy, Andor, good Lord,
good.
What a powerful series! And when you're watching this, you're thinking, another year for season 2.
But
kill us.
Oh, it's going to be so great. And I have been wanting to rewatch Andor as well. I probably will wait for the 4K discs, but one of my favorite YouTube channels, Red Letter Media, did a review. They dragged their feet on watching Andor because they're very negative. They're like the opposite of you guys. They're negative about everything.
Why bother? Why bother going over there?
Because I find them very funny. That is really it. I enjoy their personalities,
Hold on,
and I
I'm
find them
going to
funny.
stare you down.
Okay. Anyway, they watched Andor finally, and they liked it. So I was like, okay, that only reinforces how great this show is. The fact that they were able to admit in this era of Disney Star Wars that they don't care for, that Andor is quite good. And yeah, I'm super psyched to revisit that myself. So good choices. I'm going to assume you're also on TikTok because that was what you said a couple years ago on the show, that you're looking at TikTok videos.
Yeah, I think TikTok has come a long way, and people are doing
Yeah.
such creative, fun stuff on TikTok in just under a minute or maybe even up to 2 minutes. And I find myself at the end of the day decompressing by watching these fun TikTok videos.
Okay.
Once you have a talking animal, I'm all over it. I just love it.
Well, Tori and I both, my wife Tori, we both share a YouTube account on our TV. So, we have different personalities and we're both watching different things, but the algorithm like gets confused because I watch a lot of like Lego review videos and she watches a lot of cute animal like guinea pigs running around or whatever. And that's
Bunnies
like,
hopping all over a
yeah,
yard and eating
the
celery. Oh,
the algorithm is confused, like recommending things that are like halfway between those two things. Okay, let's look at the comment. Sarah wanted to answer the question. This is what she thought would happen after she saw these episodes. She thought there was a hidden tracker, maybe on Omega or the Imperial ship, similar to what they put in Clone X.
yeah.
So that was her theory about how they were going to track her down. Okay. Richard, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much. Always love having you on the show. You're very knowledgeable, obviously, being a fan of Star Wars from the very beginning. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you much. Always an honor being on your show. And I love your show. Every time I listen to your Who's the Bossk, I always learn new Star Wars things, especially since I don't really keep up with the books or comics.
Okay.
I can live vicariously through you.
Well, that makes me feel great because you guys were a big part of inspiration for me even starting a podcast. So where could people track you down? Obviously, skywalking through Neverland.com, but where else do you want to send people?
To any kind of podcatcher, look up Skywalking Through Neverland. Our YouTube channel is a whole lot of fun. We do the video podcast as well as the audio podcast. But if you watch the video podcast, then you get so much more out of it, because we put in clips, we put in pictures. If we're talking about something, to more hone down what we're talking about and to crystallize the ideas, you can see the actual clips. And to see the guests speaking is always a great time, because now you know what they look like.
Yeah.
And sometimes a little facial gesture will say 1,000 words. So I'm more of a visual person, so I like watching YouTube videos, YouTube podcasts. So go to our YouTube channel and find us on social media at Skywalking Pod.
And how about the books? You want to talk about the books?
Oh, I sure do.
Richard has co-written really with Sarah.
Yeah, these are books that I'd written called Today in Star Wars History, Volumes 1 and 2. And Sarah did a great job in all of the artwork on these books. And these books have been in the making for 47 years. And everything it's what happened on every day of the calendar year of the real life Star Wars event calendar. So there's film releases, TV show releases, comic books, video games, novels. Not being a big novel and comic book person, I had to really educate myself in all of these books and comics. And they're not just stuff I've taken offline. These are my own actual accounts of the information on these things. And some of these events I'd attended myself, like let's say opening of Season of the Force. Well, I was there, so I can give you a firsthand account of these events, and they're all bite size. So it's not like you get them a whole page of this, but I really try to condense everything in little bite-sized
Yeah.
entries, and then rewatching all of the Star Wars TV shows, animated and live action, and giving a more concise summary of these shows. A lot of people say they've never really seen Rebels or Star Wars Resistance or Mandalorian season 2. It's like, well, you know what? I've got a good bite-sized summary of these episodes. So if you're worried about going into these without knowing what's happened in the past, this will give you a good idea of what you need to know about these episodes.
Now, as time goes by, are you going to do like addendums that we can
Oh
download
yeah.
and print out and maybe paste into the book?
Yeah, even after printing these out, I was still updating and updating and
Yeah.
updating. And today, seeing the Tales of the Empire trailer, it's like, okay, that's one more thing I've got to add in there.
Yep.
Well, it's one more thing. There's always things to add. Never a dull day. There's so much
Well, I
Star
want
Wars
to.
news.
Yes, that's true. Oh boy, and today was no exception. I would like to plug my other podcast called Pop Culture Explorers Club, which is kind of like the full-length podcast version of First Steps into a Larger World, that segment that we just did, where we talk about everything outside of Star Wars. Richard, if I were to invite you on that show, now you can't pick something Star Wars, but do you have any other pop culture property that you're passionate about?
Oh yeah, I do a Planet of the Apes podcast.
Planet of the Apes. That's perfect, because we're planning a Planet of the Apes.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes coming up.
Yeah.
This is perfect. And right now we're celebrating the month of April. No, April.
April. Have you been out to Malibu Canyon where they
Oh yeah.
had
If
the
you
village?
go to our YouTube channel, you'll see the location that we did, location breakdown we did of those Planet of the Apes original locations. Once again, go to our YouTube channel, look up Planet of the Apes locations, and we went to all those places and did a side by side. You can see exactly where they shot these films, and right now we're celebrating April on Talking Apes by having a new episode every week. Mainly a monthly, or every couple of months we'll have a new episode, but for April we're celebrating by having an episode per week.
Beautiful.
So Planet of the Apes, the monkeys. You want to talk about 70s and 80s TV?
I'm sensing a theme here.
Monkeys, apes, King Kong.
Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp? No.
All the above. All the above.
You can expect an invite coming from me very soon to talk about Planet
of the Apes. You want to talk pop culture, you let me know what you want, and we're right there. If you want to talk about HR Puffin stuff, Sid and Marty Krofft, the Munsters, you want to talk about Zoom, whatever you want.
Before 1980-ish, though, right? I guess.
I can talk about 90s stuff.
Okay. Next week on Who's the Bossk? That's this podcast. We'll be doing Bad Batch again, season 3, episode 12, as we continue on our path toward the Bad Batch series finale coming at the end of May. My name is Mike Celestino. You can find me on Instagram at Who's the Bossk Pod. And you can also visit laughingplace.com for all your Disney news and opinions. Thank you so much out there for listening or watching live on the Laughing Place YouTube channel, where there's always a lot of fun Disney stuff happening. Richard, thanks again. See you tomorrow morning, very bright and early.
See you in a few hours.
Yes.
And Mike, remember, never land on Alderaan.
Alderaan, yes. Thank you very much. And see you out there very soon. See you real soon, as we say in the world of Disney. Yes. Reminder from one of the commenters, animated shorts coming out called The Tales of the Empire. Yes, we talked all about that earlier in the episode. So rewind time and watch that. Otherwise, see you real soon. My name's Mike. Thanks very much for listening. Bye.